Hi everyone, welcome to another Zwift race recap video. This time we're going around Innsbruck, doing 4 laps of the Innsbruckring. Another fun, tough, brutal race. That Legsnapper climb always is an absolute, well, as it suggests, Legsnapper. It just absolutely kills the legs, especially when you have to do it 4 times repeatedly, plus a sprint that comes not that far after that. So yeah, it was a race which achieved some absolutely crazy normalized power in this race. I hit 342 watts normalized power, which is I think one of the highest for any Zwift race that I've done. The pace in between the sort of after the Legsnapper and the sprint does back off quite a bit, but then those 2 segments, you're basically doing a 40-second and a 30-second sprint. So it was basically like an anaerobic interval training session, this race. It is a race that, it is a course that I do enjoy racing on, but whenever I've done it, I've often gotten sort of decent results. That Legsnapper does sort of suit my power profile, but it's still quite daunting that you have to push sort of 9.5, 10 watts per kilo for 40 seconds every time you go up it, which, you know, even if you do it once, it's quite painful, but doing it 4 times really does just sap your legs of energy, and that repeated effort does sort of start to take its toll. The start of the race wasn't too bad. We sort of settled into a pace of sort of 2.5, 3 watts per kilo relatively soon into the race. I think everyone was just trying to hold back and save their legs for the first time up that Legsnapper climb, which comes at sort of 5 kilometers in. I was basically trying to make sure I didn't see the front of the race or the front of the group until I got onto that Legsnapper climb. My plan, yeah, for the race was basically just trying to maximize my scoring points on the Legsnapper, and then I knew I could get sort of first across the line points basically each lap if I'm do the power that I know I can do for the Legsnapper. And then for the sprint, it was kind of more of a case of just seeing how big that group is when we get to the sprint. If it's a smallish group, I was going to try and go for the first across the line points. If it's a biggish group, just see how my legs feel, maybe give it a shot and see if I get any points from it. My focus was mainly just getting over the Legsnapper and staying in that front group and hopefully getting some points on the Legsnapper, and any points I got from the sprint was a bit of a bonus really. So hitting the Legsnapper for the first time, I've got a draft boost, so I drop it in the group, hoping to maximize its sort of benefit really. And just as we come around this kind of bend, that's when I start opening up my sprint, getting up to sort of 11.5 watts per kilo, and I quickly move through to the front. The rider up the road, I mean, he's dropping 13.5 watts per kilo, which is just really impressive. I couldn't believe the time that he set. He ended up setting 34 seconds, which is must have been one of the fastest times across all the divisions in the B races on the Legsnapper. Probably up there, and one of the fast times in the A races as well. Most B races that I saw, the sort of fast times were sort of mid to high 30s and low 40s. I managed a 40-second time, which ends up being my fastest time for the race and 6th fastest overall. So I get some fastest 3 points and some first across the line points. I think I was 6th across the line. I did struggle to sort of maintain my sprint all the way up. The last sort of 7,500 meters are often the hardest part of the Legsnapper. You just kind of that banner just seems to never get any closer. You think you're only a couple of seconds away, but you've got to keep pushing right to the banner. And I just struggled to really keep my sprint all the way up to the banner. A couple of riders came past me in that final sort of 75-50 meters. But I don't think I could have realistically, that was probably about as good as a time as I was going to do on the Legsnapper. I think it was might have been a PB. I'm not sure. I can't remember if in the recon race I did a 39-second effort, but it was definitely up there as close to a BP PB up the Legsnapper. Now we're just about to hit the sprint, and I've got a draft boost. So my plan is to try and draft through the group and get to the front just as we cross the sprint banner, but I actually end up letting a gap open up, and I kind of messed this sprint up, which isn't great. I let a gap open up, and I never really closed down on that gap. The guys that are competing the points are sort of several seconds now ahead of me, and although I catch up to the back of the group, I don't get any points on this sprint, which is a bit frustrating really, because I know I probably could have got some points. And yeah, I basically end up doing a sprint for nothing really, apart from just catching that group. And I should have been in the middle of that group or nearer the front of that group to make sure I got some points. But it was a bit of a misjudgment by my part, and hopefully I won't make that mistake second time or on the other laps coming up. So we're just coming up to the second time up the Legsnapper. The pace in the group's been pretty easy at this point. We've basically been cruising around at sort of zone 2, 2.5, 2 watts per kilo really. I think everyone's just saving their legs so they can hit these segments as best they can. And again, this time I've got an aero boost actually going into the Legsnapper. So my plan is to use that actually on the slopes. I'm not really sure where the best place to use this power up was on the Legsnapper, but I figured it was probably best to use once I've started my sprint. So I wait a little bit, again, want to sprint through the group, start opening up around the same point as the previous lap, and drop my aero power up, sprinting basically as hard as I can. And again, on this time up, I get to the front pretty quickly, but I actually probably get up to the front a bit too soon. I make that mistake as the same mistake as I did in the first lap, where I just sort of run out of legs towards the top. The last sort of 50 to 75 meters, the power sort of drops. I'm struggling to get hit over 600 watts, and a couple of riders end up coming past me. I think I got sort of 7th across the line there, which is actually, I'm not sure if I think that's the lowest actually I've got in the race across the line. But my teammate does a great job. Anders, I think he got maybe 3rd or 4th across the line. So it's great to have two riders from our team getting points in these segments. In these points races, you really want sort of 2, 3, as many riders as you can getting points on these segments. It just makes such a big difference to the overall team total. So yeah, great to have him getting some points as well. Now we're sort of descending again, heading back towards the sprint for the second time, and I'm at this point pretty determined to try and redeem myself after my poor showing in the first lap. I've got the draft boost again, so this time I'm not going to make the same mistake that I made in that first lap. I'm going to try and stay in the middle of the pack and not let a gap open up in front of me. We're a relatively small group. There is a group coming up from behind, but the points are really going to be decided by the riders in this group, and there's only sort of 14-15 of us, so I know that if I put in a decent sprint, I'm pretty much guaranteed at least some first across the line points. So I drop my draft boost, start sprinting again. Don't quite have the same acceleration as I did on the Legsnapper. I think the legs was just feeling it still a little bit from the Legsnapper effort, but getting up to sort of 10 watts per kilo. And this is quite a long sprint, and you do have to sprint all the way to the line because it's slightly uphill. So I managed to get third across the line. So yeah, making up somewhat for the poor sprint in the first lap, and now it's just a case of recovering and trying to rest the legs as much as possible, gather the motivation to try and hit the leg snapper again as hard as I possibly can. Just about to hit the leg snapper for the third time now, and the legs are starting to feel the effects of the previous times up the leg snapper and the sprint. Again, in my head, I'm just telling myself, right, let's just go hard as you can for 40 seconds. If you get some points, great, but just go as hard as you can for 40 seconds. That's all it is. 40 seconds, and then you can recover somewhat, and then we go into the sprint. So I think I've got another draft boost on this one. So basically repeating my effort from the first lap, hitting the draft boost at the bottom whilst the draft is still at its maximum, making the most of that and just going all out as hard as I can. You can see that from the way my body's moving that my form is starting to waver somewhat after the repeatedness and the repeated efforts up the leg snapper, and it's starting to take its toll, and I'm just trying to hold on to my power for as long as possible. Great to see my teammate Anders up there again, fighting for some first across the line points, and I actually managed to, I think this is my highest sort of position across the line, 4th place for the leg snapper. So yeah, pretty happy with that, given that I've already done 2 efforts up the leg snapper. Pretty happy to get my sort of best finish across the leg snapper on the 3rd attempt. Just fast forwarding through towards the sprint. This wasn't my best effort through the sprint. I was a little bit too far back going into it. I think I also had gone really hard on that leg snapper to try and get that 4th place, so I didn't have much to give on this particular sprint. Do try and at least try and get up into the top 10, as it's a small group. There's always a good chance of you getting some points. Luckily though, one of my teammates, Andrew, he absolutely smashes it. Gets, I think, 2nd across the line, which is great for our team, and I get sort of 6th, I think, across the line. So not a terrible result, but it wasn't my best sprint. I think my legs was just feeling it after that leg snapper, going really deep on that leg snapper to get that 4th place. So now we're going to go up the leg snapper for the 4th and final time. My legs are pretty spent at this point, but again, I'm just telling myself, right, just get over this climb. Once you're over this climb, you've got basically 2 kilometers to finish. Once you're over it, you're basically done. So just go as hard as you can, see if you can get some points. There is actually a rider up the road. You can just see him on the mini-map. He's about to start the leg snapper. He broke away at the end of the 3rd lap and managed to hold on, actually, which is pretty impressive for the all the way over the top of the leg snapper, which I didn't think he would do, because I thought a rider probably need at least 30 seconds, but he never actually had more than 30 seconds, but he managed to hold on. So that was a really strong ride by that particular rider. I'm pretty knackered at this point. I'm just going to see what my legs have got and just sort of go as hard as I can for as long as I can on this leg snapper. I don't quite get up to the same power as I have done on the previous laps. I'm sort of only just about managing 700 watts, but it seems like a lot of the other riders are struggling as well. So despite it being much lower in terms of power, I still managed to hold on for, I think, 6th place across the line. And once I get over the top, I'm sort of thinking, do I go as hard as I can for this next sprint, or do I just try and hold on to this group through the sprint and save my legs a little bit for the final sprint? But I figured if not that many riders are going for the leg snapper, it's probably going to be the same again for the sprint, so I actually have a chance of getting some decent first across the line points. As you can hear, I'm kind of suffering at this point. just trying to recover the legs. And so, given that there weren't that many riders going for the Legsnapper points, I figured might as well go for it on the sprint. Hopefully not that many riders will go for it. I can get some easy points. And even if I don't get a great finishing position, these points on the sprint will hopefully make up for it. So yeah, figured might as well go hard on the sprint and hopefully get some easy points. And even if some riders come past me, I can sort of back off and just save a match or two. But we start the sprint. I've got a drafting boost, so I use that. A couple of riders do go for it, but I think most people are actually just trying to hold on to the group rather than get points. So there's only sort of 4 or 5 of us that really go all out, and it's a bit of a 3-way battle between me and the 2 NL riders, and I end up splitting them just by getting second across the line. So that was actually my highest position across the line across all the segments. So although initially thinking of saving my legs for the final sprint, that ended up being quite a good decision to go for it, because I got an extra 9 points, or honestly extra, but I got 9 points from that sprint, which means that even if I don't get a fantastic finish position from this group, those 9 points will help the team nonetheless. So we're inside the final kilometer at this point, and I'm sort of getting myself ready for the final sprint to the line. One rider does go clear, and a few riders do try and chase him. I try and just make sure that if there's a split in the group, I'm not on the wrong side of that split. But I do make a bit of a mistake here. I end up pushing to the front of the group with 400 meters to go, and I've got a draft boost, and for some reason I think I should open up my sprint whilst on the front of the group, which was a complete mistake, because the draft boost isn't helping me at all here, because I got 0 draft, and then I end up basically doing a lead out for the group, and everyone just comes flying past me. I was sort of hoping to finish in the top half of that group, and I end up actually finishing in the bottom half, which wasn't a great tactical move by me. It was a bit of a tactical misjudgment to get to the front of the group and then open up my sprint and use that draft boost. I think I was just so spent from all of the other efforts that I completely sort of made a bit of an error of that. I think the only benefit really was that I sort of led out my teammate Anders, who got 3rd across the finish. So that was an absolutely awesome race by him. So yeah, really well done to him. And yeah, a bit of a mistake from me from that final finish. I think in future I'll just try and make sure that I'm not the one leading the group out. Normally I'm a bit better than that going into the final finish, but yeah, bit of a mistake from me. So looking back at the results, yeah, 8th across the line, which is not, it's not, obviously if someone had told me that I'd finish 8th at the start of the race, I would have absolutely have taken that result. But given where I was and how small that group was, yeah, I was really hoping to finish in the top half of that group, and actually finished in the bottom half of that group. So could have done better on that finish. But in terms of points, let's see. In terms of points, we came 3rd, so that was a great result for the team. As I said, Anders, my teammate, got a solid, really strong point score of 55 points. I managed 74 points, which is awesome. My teammate Andrew, he also got 45 points. So, I mean, from a team point of view, that was a really strong race. Just so happens that our 2 other teams who were particularly strong, Team NL, they absolutely smashed it. They got one rider who scored absolutely astonishing 120 points from that race, which is huge. And they actually ended up leapfrogging us on the top of the league. But as I said, we'd just been promoted to this division, from the previous division. So the fact that we're in the top 3 after being promoted is a really good performance, and hopefully we can build from there for the next 3 races. That basically covers it for this particular race. If you have any comments or thoughts about that race, or you have any stories from your race, then please leave them in the comments section below. If you like that video, then yeah, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more sort of race recaps or Zwift race analysis, then please subscribe to the channel. Thanks very much, guys.